So I think that's hard.
Huge problem for me. Why are we? What the fuck? You know what I mean?
If you do it once, you're going to do it again.
Really?
I would be curious of the legal rationale for why they let him out if that's public record, which would do, I think, would be one of the key things you would find to do that. And Alan, you wanted to answer your question? Title 42, this would be New York, November 18th of 2022, Title 42 ruled illegal by federal court. This week, the U.S. Federal District Court struck down the U.S. government's Title 42 exclusion policy, ruling it unlawful without public health justification. Title 42 has been used since March of 2020 to rapidly expel asylum seekers and southern border, grave danger, including LGBTQ refugees. This is called immigration quality, so we're not taking
LGBTQ refugees.
Editorializing activity and what we're taking,
including the LGBTQ refugees.
Which is the ability to do that, which means the Biden administration mandated for at least 2 years. Like that's it in order.
Let me say it. I looked it up. Yes, President Biden immediately acted to suspend the Trump-era Remain in Mexico policy upon officially known as the Migrant Protection Protocols upon taking office in January 2021. His administration formally halted new enrollments immediately and began phasing out the program, though the policy was legally challenged, briefly reinstated by courts, and formally terminated later. On January 21, 2021, DHS suspended new enrollments in the program. Biden began allowing those with active cases to enter the U.S. during the wind down. Legal challenges. Termination faced lawsuits for to temporary. The termination faced lawsuits by the I'm guessing by conservatives, but I don't know, who wanted it to remain in place. And then the Supreme Court eventually allowed it to be ended in June of 22. So basically, my guess is that Supreme Court said this is part of the executive branch. Biden gets to do that, just as they ruled that Trump also gets to set the policy too. The point is that what you're saying is correct, Marshall, but it was separate from what I'm saying, the point I'm making, that Trump, as the executive, said this is the policy, remain in Mexico. Biden says, no, you can come here and seek asylum here. And the main point is that sends a very different message to people around the world, which is under Trump, it's stay away, we're going to make it hard. And under Biden, it's come on down, we're going to make it easier for you to come in. And I think that's an important distinction.
I would agree. But I would also say this is like per use for our conversations. we hope that video will come after.
You think? How can you say that?
Per use.
No, I know, which is why, when I started talking, I did not want to do that. So I'm sorry about that.
Oh, don't even worry about it, man.
Alan, you mentioned something about the political violence. They're committed by the liberals more than the conservatives. So Joe, I don't think he's in this room now. Joe said that you are incorrect. I asked him in the chat to provide some link or information to support his view, which is opposite to yours. So he provided actually four sources. So here's, I'm reading this. This is from the checking facts by the forgot the name of the organization. It is in the chat. Anyway, the conclusion of the fact checking organization is this. This is just a paragraph. Indeed, the left-wing violence has risen in the last 10 years, but practically since President Donald Trump's rise to the political leadership in 2016, although it has risen from very low levels and remains much lower than historical levels of violence carried out by the right wing and jihadist attackers. Well, I wasn't expecting to see jihadists here. The report stated that more contentious politics in the United States and expansion of the Make America Great Again movement appears to have re-energized violent left-wing extremists. So you're correct in the sense that the last 10 years, the left-wing violence has risen, but overall, looking at decades, according to this study, it shows that the majority of violence by the right-wing violence. So anyway, it's in the chat. I'll just put it again. I'll find it and put it in again. It's from a very credible source. So I just wanted to kind of fact check myself on this because you made a categorical statement here, Alan, which it seems to me may not be entirely correct.
Well, I put a link in the chat that showed where that I was referencing, and I would also argue that first of all, the stats that were included also included jihadist violence, did it not? And was that solely in the United States or worldwide? Yeah, because first of all, I would think that might skew the numbers higher, which is a nice, subtle little dig like, oh, right-wingers are just like jihadists, so we're going to group them together. Anyways, that little observation aside, the point I was saying is that and the other thing is, I wonder if the stats that they're still looking at now include the attacks on, for example, Tesla dealerships, on Tesla owners directly, things like that. Those points aside, I'm trying to look it up now, but it's interesting that they don't. I looked up, I did a Google search and it said, well, it's hard. I said, how many violent incidences were there committed by the left in the 1960s? And it says, well, it's hard to put let me read it exactly. It's hard to put a number on it because much of the violence was directed at property, such as bombings of corporate or government buildings, through violent confrontations and targeted actions. 1960s marked the emergence of extremist anti-imperialist, socialist, and anarchic. Anarchist groups that operated outside mainstream, etc., etc. Those were all left-wing groups. And I know this because that's what they were known for. So, yeah, it's a past. I know what you're saying, Ali, but it's a past that the left divorces itself from. because, you know, at a certain point in the last 20 years, they've decided that they're the party of morality and benevolence. And so they don't talk about, you know, any of that. But
Alan, I just read the statistic you put here in the chat. This is interesting. And I can't help but notice there's a huge number on the right as well.
Guys,
I don't know, this kind of seems like a bias.
Let me just wrap this with Alan. So Alan, the source is called the factcheck.org, and what the title here is what we know about political violence in America. So specifically about in US is a factcheck.org, and they look at all kinds of different fact-checking stuff. This one on the political violence in the U.S. And basically, one of the conclusions was the one that I read to you, and which is in comparison over decades, the violence by the right wing is much, much higher than the left wing, with the exception in the last 10 years, the left wing actually, violence has gone up. But again, when you compare the totality of the thing, the violence by right wing is by far exceeds the left wing. Anyway,
yeah, I mean, did I claim that it was less? No. What I'm saying is that there is a change, and
yeah, that is correct. But also, I think go ahead. No.
Well, that's the thing. I don't think I ever said that it's greater, but we do see a change, and I think that change is going to continue.
Well, actually, the change I'll just say one more sentence, and also, hold on one second, Shindy, is from their experience, the left wing violence actually will go down. So whether this is true, who knows? Anyway, Sam,
I don't really understand when you say left wing, right wing. It's not the same. Like the left wing 20 years ago was very different than what it is now. For example, Bill Maher was a major leftist in 2000, 2010. But right now, the left is calling him right wing for some reason. So, like, the way you think about this thing, you can't be right wing all your entire life. You have to be like, you have to go with how your party is defined. For example, I can be right wing in 2020s, but I can't be right wing in 2010s. I can't be right wing in 2040s, for example, because at that stage you need something else.
Yeah, maybe, but the thing is, at any given moment, for example, if I would ask you, what is the Republican, platform? What are the values that a Republican or a right wing holds, and what are the value system that, let's say, left wing or liberal? We can, probably enumerate what these core value systems are in all fields: economic, taxation, immigration, abortion, gender issues, sex issues. So there are, some of these values actually they remain astonishingly consistent over the decades. But I do get your point. Things change according to the current events, and Bill Maher particularly comes across, I don't want to say right wing, but certainly he is not projecting the image that his political image appears to be different. Yeah.
There's three aspects to respond to. One, the study in regards to political violence is debunked. I guarantee that the people who cite that study have not actually looked at the individual examples that they point to, because they claim to have looked at, like over 4 figures. But if you actually look piece by piece, consider stickers on a phone pole, according to the right, as violence. They consider graffiti on the right violence, flags violence. Ironically, if you actually go case by case, they have to broaden the definition so wide to even make it within the same realm of quantity. They have to go to inanimate objects, they have to go to symbolism to just even compare to actual acts where people are getting beat up or killed or huge sums of financial loss. That's number one. Number two, used a very interesting word, value system. Interestingly enough, I would say that that's actually a right-wing framing of politics, because those that tend to be more liberal or secular, they don't look at politics in terms of values. They look them as just views or policies. You know, they use just very just matter-of-fact language. So it just was interesting to use the word values. The value system of a, quote, conservative or right-wing philosophy does have a very high correlation, verging on causation, that people tend to be spiritual, be religious, or at least grew up or were exposed to a very spiritual or religious upbringing or culture or community or family, because that's foundational, that guides them beyond just politics, which is why, you know, there's the social issues and things like that. But in regards to just principles, parties themselves are just vehicles. They're vehicles to deliver candidates to hopefully across the finish line by at least 1 inch faster than the opposing vehicle. And in modern politics, attention spans are much shorter, and so platforms have become a lot more simplified, even though the people who most pay attention to politics tend to be more intellectual, which is why there's such a bubble and such a disconnect, and why people are always so shocked by election results, because they don't actually get outside of their echo chamber and talk to normal people who have no clue what we're even referring to. Here's the thing. The modern Republican Party is very, very big tent right now, and we're figuring that out. There are some very steep divisions in regards to foreign policy. However, while that's being sorted out, it's almost unanimously on code in regards to immigration. It's almost unanimously on code in terms of less regulation and less taxation. Basically, government not being as seen and felt in your everyday life. And it seems to be universally on code in terms of just general safety, general law and order, general being protective, being stable, policies towards police, border, etc. And I think that I don't think you could find a Republican that would disagree in those topics. There's a little bit of a dying breed in regards to the lesser spending. I think it used to be that you could say that pretty much all Republicans were in favor of that. I think that it would probably still pull high, but I don't think it actually in practice is an issue that as many people care about very much anymore. So I just don't even mention it. I would say in regards to trade, it's just changed. It's just fundamentally changed, and I don't see that going back.
Stephen, let me just go back to the first point you made on the violence.
Yeah.
Because I think it's really important. I mean, to distinguish and define what's violence.
Correct.
Because you just have these studies and you have to break it down. And I mean, I just know we keep statistics, and my community's been under siege, and it's just skyrocketed from the left.
And it's actual violence.
Oh, it's
Figurative.
oh no, I can tell you
It's
it's threat. I can tell you what our threat to life incidents were last year. What we kind of I would say what we statistically keep track of, but how many of the threat to lives we actually reported to federal law enforcement was probably about 450, and then the rest to local law enforcement, and we had about an 80% indictment. I'd have to check what the final conviction rate was from it, but it just surged from we were traditionally, it was coming from the right, and it's not like the right went away, but there's no comparison. And these are threats, they're threats to life. The vandalism is significant vandalism. So you have to consider also what happened in the last few years with the protests that, vandalized private property and federal property. Pretty significant. So if you want to add, tick all those up, I don't think you can come.
the thing about it too, and then I'll land just to toss it to Alan. By the way, it's great to see several of you in here.
Good seeing you too, Stephen.
I think that one of the also marked impacts of the fact that the Second Amendment is not as controversial as it was maybe 5-10 years ago. I do think that there was a period of time where, there were maybe a lot more preppers in the 2000s and 2010s, go bags, militias, all that kind of stuff. Not in an offensive capacity, but in a defensive capacity, because there was a genuine fear. And if the left wants to go, that's not valid. The fear certainly was that 2A was under siege, and that guns were genuinely going to be grabbed. And that was based on a lot of the international precedent that was happening of gun grabs. But since, to be candid, 2A is not the hot, spicy, controversial issue that it once was, because the left has largely armed itself. And so it would be very hypocritical of them to be as outspoken against 2A as they once were, because a lot of the left, whether it be revolutionary or LGBT, has armed itself. And so it's not the controversial topic anymore. And so I think that has contributed to the fact that even the potential for the right wing to be more violent is far less than it is the left, because now that both sides, they're never going to be equally armed. But now instead of it being 95 to 5, it's maybe more like 75-25. And as that continues to move, the potential for violence is only going to go up from here, from the left, because your typical conservative armed individual is very disciplined. They maintain their weaponry. They do range day. They've been familiar with it their whole lives. A lot of the left are picking up these weapons for the first time. They're not familiar with the terminology. They're not familiar with the maintenance. They didn't grow up in the same kind of culture where it was just kind of an everyday thing, and there was a lot of respect and a lot of dignity. They do see themselves as a lot more radical, and they see it as tools, just like how everything is a tool. Because to understand Marxism is to understand means to an end. And so literally everything, a school, a vote, a gun, is all a tool.
I just want to add to what you said and what you were saying, Abby. How they classify all this stuff is important, and how they report the numbers is important. I forget which year it was, but the Biden administration came out with their crime statistics, and oops, crime went down, but they left out. I think they left out Los Angeles, Chicago, and New York or something.
Yeah, no, it's a huge reporting problem. I actually have something, I have to look at my notes I saved about that a letter issued from the FBI about the reporting problems. They redid their whole system after that happened.
Yeah, but it was like, okay, here's the crime numbers. Look, it went down, and then 2 months later, they include those cities, and the numbers were very different. And you see a lot of that, like you mentioned it, Stephen, like what they consider to be a mass shooting. I forget, it's like 3 or 4 people becomes a mass shooting. And so that gets lumped in with the guy who walks into a school and starts shooting it up. So, once again, we see they're changing definitions to their advantage, which is, good for them. What can I say? But I was also going to say, Allie, I understand where that report is coming from. And so, again, its main thrust is about the change, but I advise isn't the right word. I encourage you to read the rest of it because that Stephen Leaf, he left, because it talks about not only the violent incidences, but it breaks down the success of those attempts, and it talks about what Stephen just talked about, that people on the right are better trained in firearms. And so when if someone on the right commits a violent, politically motivated attack, they're more successful, whereas people on the left are less organized in these kinds of things, and or they tend to use fire bombs and things like that as the method of committing the violence. And those tend to be less lethal in the long run. But there's, that's, the statistics are kind of skewed at this point with the way they reported it. But
Alan, the way you say they, I get this intimation of conspiracy involved.
No. Well,
That's right.
No, it's the FBI. It really, I mean, you're talking about the article or the crime statistics?
I'm talking about the fact.
Yeah, no, but he's right. It's he means they being the researchers that put the article together.
Yes, and anyway, so if you don't believe the fact check.org, which is so many information and you check the facts, then you may say, they're right, I'm not sure. But I was really surprised at the comment that Steve made before he left. And the category is probably maybe did not want to think about that correlation does not imply causation. Is it possible to say that nowadays the left-wing individuals, they have changed their perspective on the Second Amendment, and now they are having more guns, buying guns, and because of that, just because they've been with the guns, not for too long, then they are less competent, less responsible, and less trained in handling guns. I really fail to see the analogy here. It could be a perfect an example that somebody in some of the states, their entire family is Democrats, but they are in the hunting. They hunt, they own guns, they've had guns for generations. So making that kind of reach to associate the left wing, by the way, my comments are value free. I'm not.
Yeah, and you know what, Ali, you make it right up. Yeah. Oh, were you done?
No, let me just land in here. So I thought
okay.
that this is, and I think you also said the same thing, Alan, that there's a perception here that the left wing is, that again, less competent, less trained, less responsible for handling guns. It just doesn't, I don't understand this. I can give examples of democratic or liberal, right wing, left wing family in some states for generations that they handle guns. I mean, that's the way of life. It's not a political way of being, it's a way of life, having guns. And so anyway, I was surprised at that comment. And when people make comments like that, categorically like that, it kind of takes away a little bit about their credibility about other statements.
Yeah, but Ali, what you're saying is true. But those aren't the people who are committing the attacks. Generally, and if you read in that, again, if you read in that report, there's one incident that they point out in particular that it was someone on the left. They had a gun. They had never trained with it. They went to it was a mayoral candidate or something, shot at this guy at point blank range, emptied his magazine, and he missed, except for one bullet that grazed the guy's sweater at point blank range. So, I'm not in that. What you're saying
Did
is
he hit other people in
but
crossfire?
Say that again?
Was other people hit in crossfire?
I don't think so. I don't know. It didn't mention it. But I don't disagree with what you're saying, but I think what you're talking about is that yes, there are people on the left who have guns, and it is part of the culture of where they live, absolutely. But I think those are the people who are being moved to this kind of violence. That maybe they're on the left, but they're not progressive, or we might categorize them as being what's the term they use nowadays? What the they're Democrats, but Democrats from 30 years ago. So, but yeah, really, the article touches, everything you're talking about. It brings up, and it says, well, 20 out of these 31 incidences involved or attempted fire bombings, and in this, I mean, it really breaks it down.
Yeah, I would agree with that. See, without too much, I grew up in a house that was on the right. My parents voted for Trump back in 2016, 2020, and they did the same thing this last election, right? So yeah, definitely a Republican house, but yeah, we all grew up hunting, and as soon as, in my state, it's as soon as you're 12 years old, you can go get your license, as long as you're with your parent and you've done all the training, to go hunting, so on and so forth. So this is something that I learned about at a very young age, and the responsibility, and hey, these farm people, you gotta be safe. I think more so that's like where that criticism came from. Even though I grew up and now my ideologies are a little bit different than my parents. I'm not a Trump voter, but I think you guys do have a point. I can see definitely what they're talking about, just being a part of like the American culture and being involved in politics. A lot of people who, if you didn't grow up around guns, you're not going to understand the ins and outs of, okay, we need to be really safe with this. We need to make sure we're, dotting our I's and crossing our T's. And this is important, right? And if you can't fucking handle it, don't buy one, right? So, I don't think a lot of people have had this understanding and they're just going out and purchasing firearms, and that's where we're seeing this irresponsibility.
Thank you for that, Cover. I don't have first-hand experience with these things. I just can tell you. I'll just give you my views on it. But if you look at the Second Amendment, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of free state and the right of people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. I've memorized that for the hell of it. If you look at it, the initial intention of the founding fathers while writing the Second Amendment, it was keeping the states safe from the tyranny of the federal government, a well-regulated militia. If you look at the Federalist Paper, which was written by J. Madison and another one I forgot. So the three people, the founding fathers, actually promoting a year before the Constitution became ratified to make a case why the states ought to be supporting this the Constitution and ratifying it. And they wrote the article, 54 articles, 84, I'm sorry, 84 articles, I think, anonymously, and they're published. They were the bestsellers in terms of arguing every aspect of the Constitution and making a case for it. And of course, pointing out some of the shortcomings of it. But the idea was to, Hamilton, Jay, and anyway, it's getting too late in here. So, if you look at these papers, and they're very difficult, not difficult to read, there are too many of them. There's not a single mention about why the Second Amendment in there for the private citizen to defend their homes or to go out there and shoot anyone. It was just predominantly, the second clause, it was constructed because a well-regulated militia would not have been possible without having the right of the people to keep and bear arms would not have been possible. So in a sense, the founding fathers, they had a different idea in mind by saying that people ought to have guns under a militia kind of a structure than the way we see it and interpret it, right now. But anyway, thank you, Coco, and Alan left already. Good to see you, everyone. Good night.
Oh, no problem. Ocean, are you awake? There's people in the audience that want to come up. Well, I texted the other mods. I don't know if they're coming back or not, or if they're even online anymore. They might have went to sleep. See, they're still online. Nope, can't even fucking find their name on here. Whatever. Bye.
This spring, a litter of African painted dog pups making their public debut. 10 puppies, 5 males, 5 females, already showing off their unique markings. Energetic.
so focused on the Straits of Hormuz and not the Gays of Hormuz?
Yes, I agree. Yes,
Yeah.
for sure.
Why do you think they're willing to leave the Gays of Hormuz behind?
I think it's just historically, like, you know, gays have always been very discriminated against, which is wrong, and so many.
Isn't it
My father has sold me because we don't have bread, rice, and flour. He has sold me to an old man. He's bought Parwana for 200,000 Afghanis, just over $2,000. Covered up, Parwana whimpers as her mother holds her. This is your bride. Please take care of her, says Parwana's father. Of course I will take care of her, replies the man.
I have much more than 12, 13 billion, you know, and I said, okay, fine, all these numbers are just written numbers, you know, and one day I went to a bank, you know, at that time there were no restrictions of this, and I wrote a check and cash $10 million, and I took it home. For yourself? For myself, yes.
You cashed $10 million from the bank?
Yes.
Yes, and took it.
I put it in the boot of my vehicle, and I went home, and I opened it, and I look at 10 million. I said, okay, fine. Now I believe I have money.
The attorney you hire matters.
Boy.
100,000 streams.
Injury law made personal.
Are you looking for?
I didn't want to sell X. At that time, Twitter said at 54. I believe the price could be higher. So we called Musk. I called Musk and I had a call with him. I was in the desert. I remember that very well. So I called Mr. Musk. I told him, Mr. Musk,
We're out here actually filming. As we fight to preserve the wages of tip workers, the history of tomorrow's date is not lost on me. As we fight.
احساس میکنم که خواستین یه جور متفاوت بین مرد.
Jordan Museum in Highland Park. The new owner wanted to turn the estate into an attraction that he said would bring thousands of people to town. He said it would be good for the local economy. The people who live nearby were mostly against it because of the concerns about traffic and noise. The council voted 7-0 against his zoning proposal. He doesn't know.
Your attorney is not the only person working on your case. I'm Alana Mallman, and I'm
انظر للشباب الفلسطيني والاسرائيلي يريدون السلام ويريدون يعيشوا في دوله واحده. ننتهي من هذا الصداع اللي يخرب ويسمم العالم كله ما يسمى به. وهذا الكتاب الابيض، هذا الكتاب الابيض فيه حل صراطين بعدين يعني العرب ما عندهمش عداوه من الاسرائيليين. I woke up to
The guy in the beard is my dad who's no longer alive.
Your dad is your dad?
Why is he talking now? He's talking. Can you please get out of here? So here's the story. I'll give you this.
Yeah.
So,
Cry,
the guy in the beard.
baby.
هذا قلت لي شو قصتها؟
الأمانة بتجي أمتى؟ 2010 شوي تعثرت الأمور. What do you do? What's your job?
I'm a fixed income salesman.
What do you feel about your job?
It's good. There's a lot of opportunity there.
What do you think has the power in society?
I think the working class does. A lot that they can do.
أكيد ما لم تتعرض سوريا إلى استهدافات مباشرة من أي جهة فهي ستبقى خارج هذا الصراع. يكفي سوريا 14 سنة من الحرب دفعنا خلالها فاتورة كبيرة جدا فنحن
You met Mr. Wells before? Mr. Wells, you make Whitby look skimpy.
Well, you see, I'm fat and you're ugly, but I can tell you.
Have you ever been in an aeroplane?
Never.
Would you like to?
I shouldn't mind now, but I wouldn't when they first came in. I never.
I'm sick of الخيل تعلم والفوائد تؤلم شيخ الحروب وكهلها وفتح
Hello, princess.
What up?
How you doing? Oh, this is I didn't recognize him with the do-rag.
Yeah.
That's crazy. We got the same bottle from last night as him. Selena, what's going on? What?
No, I was in there when we finished that one.
Oh, all right.
Look at me.
Oh, Selena, why are you running away? Come.
You see that? You see that giant crane over my shoulder? That's the construction of President.
انظر للشمال.
Hello.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello?
I have returned.
Yes.
I'm ready to be your long-term distance, low commitment, casual girlfriend, if you'll still have me.
You just hold on for 1 second.
Oh, okay.
Sublime! I don't know. I have to think about that.
Oh boy. Probably a better combo. I'll let them study Torah.
Look, Isaac's checking people in.
doing their work. I don't know what the fuck people are talking about, how they're just standing around. They're actually bringing people up and everything.
You never, ever rate a mayor until Memorial.
The University of Pennsylvania has to turn over a list of. I started working with wildfire almost 6 months ago, and now I've got people.
Hey, leave her alone. See, I told you that would happen, Cleo.
Woman. Sharia, a woman. What is a woman? I know this.
That don't do nothing. That only run they mouth. That don't do nothing. That only.
Serenity Med Spa is expanding. We are opening our second location, and it's coming to Willis. We're bringing everyone.
Don't get on that. See, now you're fucking get this on. You know, when you're out with folks and they pick up that thing and they.
You just really know. You think Kramer does JT as a clown?
It's amazing. Honestly, there's no. I feel like it was a neutral plane. Like
Even
we are
Kramer
at
does
odds. I don't
JT
need
as a
to be
clown.
aggressive Camille because that's not who she is as a whole. This is what I was saying earlier on in this conversation, like hours ago. Like they're bad moments. They're not who you are as a whole. I feel like I met Camille. However, in that energy of disrespecting her, I can foresee or just understand, have a discernment because I've been on this app, and two, I'm real. Like everybody has a trigger. You push up, you poke a bear enough, they'll turn up on you and give you what you fucking looking for. A lot of people count me out. Hey,
Oh yeah, Leo.
you feel me? Like, and then you have to give them what they're actually looking for. But
Just don't do it.
but all in all,
Don't fuck with a Leo. That's a fact.
no, but all in all, I'm not thinking this is solely you. This is like you can't. I can't book you for business. I can't love you as a friend. You're gonna treat me like this. I don't have to trigger you. I ain't never had to disrespect. Why would I? I'm minding my business. Why would I have to do that? But if
She's involved with you,
shit, my friend don't play. Like she's gonna pop off. You keep poking the bear. I'm just letting you know right now. As I tuck my hair behind my ears, I'm letting you know right now she don't play. Like I don't. That's not like a person.
She's an evolved Leo. Kind of like I got a grandmother who's a Leo, right? And she's so chill. So the grandmother that my granny, who I do everything with, she's a Cancer. And you would think the two of them would be opposite. But no, the Cancer, she's the one that's vibrant. She doesn't really do a lot more than just the way she presents herself. Like she is gorgeous and she shows it, you know. Like it gives off a lot of Leo energy, Virgo, Libra. You know, it gives off that time of life where everybody just wants to be beautiful every time they step out. But my grandmother, not that she's not the same. She don't want to look good or nothing like that. But she'll be 85 this year, and she's so chill. You wouldn't think she'd Leo until you start talking to her, and there's certain things she says like, girl, you a Leo. But you know, she's so chill. And I'm like, that's that evolved. That's that I've lived a life. That's that I've had the experience. I've felt the pain. I've felt the joy. I've done this, and I feel like Camille has that. She's lived in those stages of her life, you know. And so Camille, I feel like Camille more of an evolved Leo. So we don't really get we don't see it. Not that she doesn't have it, but she doesn't have to show it to everybody. You know?
But you know why, D? Because like you resonated at a vibration where you don't have to trigger her because one, we're never intimidated by none of us. We respect and love and pour into each other like equally. Like reciprocity is beautiful. Like you show up for me, I'm gonna show up for you. You need me there, I'm there. Right? Love is love. And the understanding of indifference of people who can't show up within weakness, we create space for that. That's not those situations. It's when you want to pick fights and you want to do things to spark energy from people, and then you assume because they're so zen, because they're so in the pocket, like you don't even know what it took for me to get
right.
You don't know what it took for me to get this peaceful. And yeah, honestly, 2025 actually allowed me to show my ass, and I showed everybody who wasn't privy to how I speak when I'm tested, because I felt like season 1, I feel like everybody was testing everybody just to fill out where everybody was at, right? So I was like, I guess having conversations, not really getting into like situations where people hated me, but just like, oh, you talk spicy, yeah, I talk spicy too. But then you learn how to pick and choose your battles and have discernment, and you just like digress with that, and that's all like learning and growth and stuff like that. And now I'm in my mid-30s, and it's these days I don't fucking care unless I truly fucking care. Then you'll see. And that's with my relationships. It's with family and people I actually truly call friends. You'll see me turn into something that you've never seen before. Because it's like, listen, ain't nobody fighting with me back against the wall. We throwing clothes, right? And if we were in person, I don't actually do a lot of talking. And I'm just let the mic breathe on that, because it's not to that point. Like we've tried talking, right?
Well, what I appreciate about Leo's women, at least, a lot of times they have like high self-esteem, or at least they portray that. So it's like they're a little less likely to be like envious and competitive, because I feel like deep down they just feel like they the shit anyway. So there's not that kind of like catty jealousy that I tend to experience with some other type of women.
Yes, I'm gonna tell you this about me. I am not jealous or whatever. I kind people or whatever too. I feel like people do be in competition. But yeah, I try and uplift people.
1000%. Literally, my business is about that, and so is yours. It's like I have so much energy and glow and peace within myself. I would love to share it with you. Please be patient and just like breathe within yourself so you can receive what I can express to you, right? Have you ever met somebody who can't resonate with that and it is kind of upset with your peace and your
All the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're like
Yep.
in contempt of it. Like anything. Yeah. It just seems so very like anything that you say they're like in contempt of. Like it's like no.
Or like your peace angers them. And then it's just if they try to rattle you, it can't. Oh my gosh. They're fuming at that point.
Your love, your abundance, your opportunities, your excitement about the way that you speak about your life. And say, for instance, shit is chaotic in your life, right? But the way that you view your life, because I'm a person that only speaks about gratitude. When I'm coming off I'm only, sometimes I'll talk about like dark things, but I always have like a positive side to balance it out. You know, this is how I'm regulating this circumstance right now. Even that kind of angers people, and it's just like, fuck, I'm trying too. I don't need you to be aggressive with me. I'm literally fighting for my life, and you're just like upset. And sometimes you value and care for the people who possibly see you as not necessarily a threat, because everybody has their own battle, but like in their head.
Intimidating.
Yeah, and I'm like, I'm not doing this to trigger you. I'm doing this to reassure my next step, my next goal, or my self-love. This love that you may be intimidated by on the outside is not to trigger you. It's literally to convince myself, like, yeah, you can still do that next thing. Because what's on the opposite side of fear? A lot of people are trying to leap over those bounds, you know? And it's a daily task. It's not like one goal and once you do it, it's done. No, you may fail. So what you gonna do now? You're gonna try again. Every day, every day, every day. Like self-talk about who you are as a person, how you value yourself, and not caring how other people view you. Because even if you do feel good and you're like in that mode of today is a good day, and they're not having a good day, I'm not gonna be affected by that. Hopefully it influences them. You know, like that's truly my goal.
Yeah, I just wanted to say something. I really relate to a lot of what you guys were saying. I remember this job that I had where I was just happy to be there. I was excited. I was younger, and I think just my positive demeanor really got on people's nerves, and they just were, really miserable. And if you weren't miserable as well, it was a problem. So having to I still come across those types of people, and I just try to distance myself. Like, no one has a perfect life. I accept the downs and the ups. But I think people expect you to always, be pessimistic. And yeah, as a woman of color, Black woman who has grown up in the burbs, so I sound like a white girl, having to constantly also defend myself to my own people gets really exhausting at times. So I definitely get where you guys are coming from. Some people are just not happy with themselves, and instead of uplifting, they gotta take a dig to feel better.
Agreed.
Yeah, and that's just the saddest. That's just so low to me.
Yeah.
Jeez.
It really is.
Especially because we have Mel. especially because you may have so many things going on in your life. Like, I don't think about trying to shit on anybody. I'm just trying to do my thing. Like, I'm just trying to follow my alignment and do what I am destined to do. You know, like it literally is just me and me, even family. You know, you can talk about friends, you can talk about lovers, you can talk about coworkers or anything that's outside of yourself. Family, like sometimes you just need to lock in and realize who you are as a person, and not take it as offense. Have you influenced anybody with your selfish acts of care? I have.
Me?
I'm asking the room.
Have we what?
Influence any of your surrounding people, family, friends, coworkers with your selfish acts of care?
Oh yeah, like overgiving. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thinking I'll get something in return or something like that. Yeah.
Teaching people how to love you, teaching people how to respect you, and controlling your time and energy within circumstances, and learning your boundaries. Like a lot of leeway you can utilize it within the companies people work for, but they don't know the terms, and so they're just oblivious and ignorant, and they just oblige to overworking themselves. But utilize these opportunities for yourself within the government, all that's everything, and setting boundaries with friends, family, lovers. It's
Yeah, I'm a big boundary setter. That's so important. Really is.
Boundary setter of the family. Okay, my whole family learned how to set boundaries messing with me because, yeah.
What does that mean?
I mean, because it's hard to explain, but
Start from the top.
I don't know if I should say this, telling me, but my mom, and she grew up differently from the way that I grew up. Her family, they were surrounded by a lot of family, and sharing spaces and just very communal and stuff like that. And I was an only child up until the age of 11. You know what I'm saying? So I just always had a different kind of independent sort of streak in me. And then, as a child, I was very much a pleaser. I wanted to, be good and get good grades and be rewarded for it and, keep things calm at home so I didn't get in trouble type shit. But when I started getting more into myself, it started rubbing up against the norms that were set in the family, and then I had to come to certain I had to lay certain boundaries down, even with the religion. I was raised as a Jehovah's Witness, and as I got older, even though I never got baptized anyway, but as I got older, I just didn't vibe with it in that way. You get what I'm saying? And I'm fine with that. I'm fine with where I was at and where I'm at now spiritually. And, but I understand, okay, my mom, she takes this very seriously. And, it's one thing to have little debates and differences of opinion, but it would turn into all out, not physical violence, but verbal war.
Yeah,
because,
I relate with you, Mello, by the way. Go ahead.
No, but seriously, it's okay, at some point I have to be okay, I cannot have these conversations with you because all it does is frustrate us both, so I'm going to decline, when the conversation starts getting to a certain place, okay, I'm exiting this, respectfully, not in no type of crazy way, but no, and that was hard, I think for her to kind of grasp. And with my mom being the matriarch, her way kind of sets the tone. So it kind of had to spread that energy around the whole family, basically. Like, and get everybody used to, it's okay to set a boundary. It's okay. It's not unloving or anything like that. I always do it with love. And ultimately, it's for everybody's peace of mind. But, yeah, I had to be like kind of the leader in that sense of like, and then even outside of the house, you know what I mean? Like, there are things that, parents are from a different generation and, just have a different way of doing things. And I'm like, oh no, this is not right. We getting it fixed right now. You know what I'm saying? No, you're not gonna bullshit us about this price. Nope, I'm gonna look it up and no, you know what I mean? So I was just always the one that kind of took that charge, like, no, we will be treated fairly. We will set our boundaries, and we will respect those boundaries. And if a person cannot do that, then they just can't be around you, and that's just what it is.
Yeah, I'm really quick to cut people off. I kind of got an early start going back to like high school with my parents. Very toxic situation, but sometimes you have to, no matter how close you are to them, you got to take care of yourself. You are the most important person, if you don't take care of yourself, nobody else will.
And the interesting thing is, your elders had their space to grow solely on their own. Because my grandmother's passed, but they both had their parents pass early on, so they had to do a lot of their discovery solely on their own. So when you set a boundary as a granddaughter, right? I feel like it's a little pushback because they want the authority of respect, but it's just like, hey, I'm an adult now. I have things. I love you. There's no disrespect here, but like communicating within the nature of like, I'm an adult now. That conversation is very, very, very profound, and I think that's why she views me differently. The way that I speak within my sureness of who I am as a person. As because my sister and my aunts are not going to be the matriarchs. My mother is possibly going to be the next. However, worst case scenario, who's going to be after that? Who's going to have enough discernment to lead the family and be the heart and the heartbeat and the backbone of the family? And that's totally me. And it's a lot of pressure. But I feel like I'm taking these days when I'm setting boundaries of like, I'm just taking a day to just be, no rhyme or reason, no excuses. I just, hey, I'm following up on yesterday. I couldn't answer, I couldn't answer yesterday. I was busy, I'm not going to be at people's beck and call because I know when I'm supposed to be at everybody's beck and call, the phone's never going to stop ringing. And I already want to take advantage of like my opportunity these days to enjoy my life before shit gets serious, because we all have parents, but who handles all of the paperwork, right? I'm the one who's gonna have to handle the paperwork. Let me enjoy my life before I have to get super serious about shit, because I feel like, and I don't want to say this all out, but I've kind of already known within the nature of the dynamic, I possibly will have to bury everyone. Like, she's the strength. She is the strength. And where's the fun? Where's the flow? Where's the joy? Where is that? So don't be mad at me, because I'm really trying to take my time, because I know shit's gonna fucking get serious, and I want to be prepared, and I don't want to feel exhausted at that point where you guys are taking every last bit of me, where I can't pour back into myself through my experiences of love and life and joy, guys ever thought about that?
Yeah, no.
Who's gonna be the last to bury who?
Yeah, I'm the youngest of 8 in my family. And like I was listening to your story, Mello, and I was like, that's definitely the situation of my family too. Like we haven't figured out how to be like, at odds with each other, because there's always been this kind of excuse me, like pressure to have peace and like keep the spirit in the home kind of thing. And so similarly, I had like that role that you had. And Alexis, your story, was it your grandma or your mom whose mom died at a young age, and then took on that kind of like matriarchal role, like kind of stepped into the plate. Like that is my mom right there, and she is just like everything you said. It was just kind of like I was like, yep, it's so crazy how these like kind of situations and kind of those I don't know, those like I don't know because now that we have like 8 children, there is kind of this I want to say diffusion of responsibility to take on that role. So it's, I don't know, your guys' accounts, I just was listening and I just was like, whoa, that's kind of like a little bit of each, but.
I feel that. And I think you guys are onto something because my mom also lost her mom at a young age. And I think that has a big effect on it too. Like, I was 2 or 3 when my grandmother passed. So like, she was a young, not like teenage mom, but a young mom without her mother, you know what I mean? Just like thrown into that world and figuring it out, you know what I mean? But like for me it was different, you know what I'm saying? So I think, yeah, there's a lot to it, but yeah, there's just like that dynamic of just kind of already inherently, I don't know, just having to depend on myself, knowing that from a young age, you know what I mean? Having to figure a lot of things out. First of all, as the oldest, you always the one that's got to figure shit out because your parents are still learning. But then also, with her not having her mom for, up into adult age, it just, I don't know. I think like it was hard for her to accept that I had become an adult, you know what I mean? And how to like engage with me as an adult woman to another adult woman. Until now things are kind of better, but
Oh man, Alexis, you were talking about that too. The conversation I just had that conversation recently with my mom, and it was stemming because like I went home and I was like, hey, can I just borrow the car? I was visiting. I live in Minnesota. They live in California, so I was like, can I borrow your car? And it was just something that's been like it had been recurring, like, oh, let me do something for you. Like, be careful out there. Like, she was scared that because it was raining, in Southern California, it's really like dangerous. And I was like, man, you don't even want to know what I was just driving in last week. You can't even see the lines on the lane on the interstate. Anyways, but like all of that to say, like, it was that was a kind of like point where I was like, man, I need to have this conversation with her and be like, you never worry about me when I'm not in your view, when you see me, but all of a sudden here I am. So I had to kind of you don't need to be, I will always be your baby, right? But also, you were me at once. There has to be some sort of like reciprocity or some sort of understanding on your end to make this work. Because I think I can kind of see you, like I've seen you as an adult and like that I relate with you as an adult. Yeah, I don't know, there is kind of like something you gotta nudge parents.
Half the hard talks. I have a very religious grandmother, and we were talking about talking left of the conversation with people who are like within like